Good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to the Saturday Tropical Outlook. I'm going to start off today by looking at a couple of interesting things on Twitter. So this was pre-recorded late on Friday night. So a couple of fine details may be out with regards to this. But I want to show you, I want to start off by looking at some of the damage that was inflicted to parts of Japan from Typhoon Halong over the past week or so. Some fantastic visible satellite images from, well, basically from space, looking down on Halong. Some very impressive photographs coming from the International Space Station. So, it did certainly cause a lot of problems. Category 3, low-end Category 4 equivalent system. These are tweets here from Back Perch Weather. 2 seconds. So these were the scenes, by the way, coming out of Japan, retweeted by Back Perch Weather from the region that was hit by the eye of Halong. Play back from the start. So as you can see here, buildings decimated. The Pacific season did get off to a slow start in the west, not so much in the east. We are now on the R name with regards to the East Pacific season. But even the West Pacific has had some big hitters in recent weeks. Again, some images coming out of Japan. Look at this here. Horrendous damage in parts of southern Japan from Halong. So very significant damage indeed from that, like I say, Category 3, low-end Category 4 strength system. Back a year ago, 2 days, we had Hurricane Milton make landfall just south of Tampa Bay, Florida. And you can see here this IR imagery showing the system pulling away from the Yucatan and then making a beeline for southwestern Florida. Obviously significantly weakened, but did not miss with regards to its impacts on much of the lower peninsula of Florida. Then as we move forward here, we'll talk about Subtropical Storm Karen in just a second. But we did see back in 2018, yesterday marks the anniversary of Hurricane Michael, Category 5, making landfall between Panama City and Mexico Beach, Florida. This is the radar imagery showing that landfall as the system came ashore. A truly devastating hit for sure. As you can see here from these images, basically showing that a new inlet was created on that west coast of Florida due to Michael's landfall. Very, very significant impacts for sure. Look at this here. Again, Category 5 strength system. Not an awful lot can withstand those 155 plus mile per hour sustained winds. So yeah, we are just surpassed the first anniversary of Milton, and also the 7-year anniversary of Hurricane Michael that made landfall. In fact, it was not southwest Florida; it was up on the Florida Panhandle. That was actually a few weeks after that. I took a trip to Mexico, and when I flew back from Mexico back to Scotland, we flew over that part of the world, and it was really making me think the devastation that was caused from that system. In fact, it was actually during the course of October that I went to Mexico. I think it was the latter half of October. So Category 5 Michael made landfall in Florida, I think about 2 weeks before I went to the Mexico trip. So some pretty useless information, it has to be said, but I thought I would share it with you anyway. Global tropics, this is how things are looking at the time of recording. As I said, late on Friday evening, we have got subtropical storm Karen. It's now post-tropical, by the way, but it was the most northerly developing tropical system in Atlantic history. If we look at this tweet here, you can see from Michael Ferragamo that these are the top 4 most northerly developing systems. Pretty impressive. Alberto back in 1988 forming just to the east of Cape Cod, had unnamed 1975 system well out over the open Atlantic. Karen, obviously, 2025 at 44.3 degrees north, and an unnamed system back in 1952. So Karen is the most northerly developing system on record, which is rather interesting. So anyway, back to the global tropics. We have an invest area 28W in the vast open waters of the Pacific. Nakri now down to tropical storm strength south of Japan. There's a post-tropical storm Karen. We've got Jerry, we'll talk about that as well, struggling and unlikely to become a hurricane now. We've got Raymond, and we have a TD Priscilla just to the west of the Baja of California. Looking at the latest IR imagery for both Pacific and Atlantic, you can see here quite an active picture. We have got tropical storm Raymond here, west of the central coast of Mexico. What's been happening is this systems, there was 2 a couple of days ago just off the west coast of Mexico. This has been creating increased subsidence over the Gulf and Caribbean, but also increased shear. So the systems in the far east Pacific influencing and putting a lid essentially on the Gulf and the Caribbean, but also, as well as that lid, creating increased wind shear. So the Caribbean and Gulf have been ridiculously quiet this year, and I'm very hesitant in terms of saying that is the season over, because we just do not know with the possible development of a Central American gyre at this time of the year in particular, and those super warm waters within the Caribbean and the Gulf could create something very, very quickly. We do have a frontal system expected to drop into the Gulf into next week. That may be a trigger point for something trying to spin up. There's Jerry north of the islands here that's been creating some flooding rains up and down the length and breadth of the leewards in the past few days. And we do have that system here that is creating flooding in such places as Charleston, South Carolina, for example. But we have got a hostile environment which is preventing this from becoming, tropical, whether it be subtropical or fully tropical. Very warm waters, it's over, but the environment is just not allowing this system to develop. We've got quite strong shear coming out of the east, or actually from the west, should I say, and that is shearing off any kind of closed low developing. But it is going to bring a pretty messy picture through the course of the weekend. It has been causing some very wet and unsettled conditions in recent times, and it will continue to do so into the upcoming weekend. Looking at the eastern, let's have a look at the full Atlantic then and see how the latest IR imagery is showing up. And you can see here that we do have a new wave coming off Africa. The problem is now we are beginning to see the Cabo Verde season wind down at this time of the year. We're starting to see increased shear in the main development region, and therefore the focus becomes more over the Caribbean and the Gulf with regards to anything trying to develop. And we've just got too much shear within this part of the world, and therefore the NHC does not see any highlight of those systems over the deep tropics. There just isn't anything highlighted in terms of development. In terms of Jerry, then We can see that the NHC has this system now remaining a tropical storm, and heading in a kind of almost due north fashion through the course of the weekend, and then hard right, even turning more back on itself almost towards the southeast, as it feels that trough and jet moving southwards. So as Jerry then moves north, the jet is coming south. That is going to increase the shear, prevent it from becoming anything other than a tropical storm that it is at the moment, and then that will take that hard right turn over and into the early portions of next week here. So post-tropical storm Karen, 45 mile per hour sustained winds, 1,000 millibars, moving in a northeasterly direction at 16 miles per hour. Jerry moving, it's 50 mile an hour, 1,006 millibars, and it's moving in a northwest direction at 15 miles per hour. Let's finish off by looking at the models then, and not a huge amount to speak about. We do have some shear to speak about. Fairly calm conditions over the Caribbean, as can be seen here. This is as of 12Z today. You can see here the trough that is digging into the southeastern United States. That's been creating shear over the Gulf of Mexico. We've got some fairly strong westerly shear through the main development region, hence why these tropical systems are not necessarily going to do anything. Jerry will eventually move north, as we'll play through over the next few days. Jerry moves northwards here, catches the jet, and therefore shoves it east-southeast. And as we continue to play through, there is not a huge amount to speak about. Notice here there's pockets of less shear. So the blues represent areas of low shear. The yellows and the reds represent the stronger winds, both in terms of strength and direction with height through the atmosphere. And there is elements of a low shear, but we just are struggling to see development to then those systems to then develop and find themselves in a pocket of low shear. But generally speaking, if we look at this ECMWF model here, we go back to the current period. You can see here there is the remnants of a subtropical storm Karen. It's not going to go anywhere. We've got a big blocking area of high pressure over the UK and Ireland, so therefore it will not head towards the UK or Ireland. Jerry is going to move north, like I say, catch the jet stream. There's those waves that are coming off Africa. Our attention really would be, there's that coastal low that is going to bring a wet and windy weekend to the southeast and the mid-Atlantic region of the United States. My area of interest would be through Central America and over the Caribbean, some sort of spin-off, plus a frontal system that is going to drop southwards into the Gulf of America and may try to develop something here. But you notice there is not a whole lot of things to speak about. So is the end game approaching? That is going to be the golden question. Certainly off the ECMWF has some very weak areas of low pressure popping up and then kind of fading away. At the very end of the loop here, this is all the way to Friday 24th of October here. It's trying to see something bundle over the Caribbean, but it is not looking overly enthusiastic. I want to finish off by showing you the MJO here, the area of upward motion versus subsidence. And if we look at let's go back to the appropriate chart. And sorry, that's still the wrong chart. If we look at the 200 vertical velocity potential, you can see here that we do play through this loop. We do have an area of upward motion here through the Western Atlantic and Central Atlantic, subsidence over over Europe and over Africa. This would be conducive, but the problem is drier and most importantly shear is inhibiting anything trying to spin up. Now, as we then get into the latter half of October, it really does become the end game of the season. We can get big storms in the Gulf, in the Caribbean, especially late in October, even into the early portions of November, we'll get these redeveloping Central American gyres. We get them in the springtime, we get them in the autumn time, but we're starting to see the season kind of unwind, and therefore I don't really see anything particularly evident in the modelling that suggests that we are going to see anything major coming up. So we've had 11 named storms. The average for the season is 14.4. I believe I put the 15 to 17 named storms for the season. This is beginning to look more and more likely to be average, perhaps even slightly below average in terms of tropical activity, which is quite interesting. So that is it for today. I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing here on the channel. Like, share, and subscribe. Remember, check out the live stream. Hit that link in the description below. Hit the notify me bell, and therefore you will get a reminder when I go live tomorrow afternoon. So I hope you can join me for that. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and I'll see you next time with more. Bye for now.